How your childhood affects your love stories. Well, the person who spoke that the best was Freud. He already spoke that. He studied human nature and he discovered that most of our, not only in love but in general terms, most of our adulthood behavior has direct link with our childhood. Well, and it's not different in terms of love. First of all, what is to be an adult? To be an adult is to try to compensate everything that we did not have when we were a child. So, of course, it has a direct link with love. And also, there are two types of reactions when we become adults. We can either try to have more that thing we had before, or try to get distant from that thing we had before. Well, I'll explain it better. For example, if your father was like, for example, a lawyer, so maybe you will be a lawyer because you want to be closer to your father, or maybe you will never be a lawyer and you have absolutely no intentions to be a lawyer, or you do something quite opposite from being a lawyer because you want to take the distance from your father. So in terms of love, it happens like this as well. The way you're capable, because love in fact is emotions. No, love is we can really analyze love from different points of views, but I think if we link that to childhood, you have to talk about emotions because that's what we receive when we are a child. So of course, if our mother is super protective, it may impact in our adulthood. If our father is absent, for example, it may impact. Well, the most known behavior feature of this type of love is Oedip. No? It's based on the Greek myth of Oedip. He falls in love with his mother Jocasta, and then he kills his father Lion. But he did not know it was his father. It was a prophecy. And then, well, Freud used that metaphor of Greek mythology and brought it to love psychology. So, for example, it doesn't mean that you love your mother literally, but you may find a woman very close to your mother. And well, specialists say it's not very good. If you find a woman very, very close to your mother, probably you get divorced soon because you're marrying your mother, and that girl will not be your mother at all. So some studies show that some people marry people like 3 times. Some men, for example, they would marry 3 times with different girls, and each time the lady is more different from his mother because he's getting free of a deep complex. So, for example, if you have this overprotection from your mother plus an absent father, either because he works or because he doesn't connect, you can be overloaded with this type of Oedipic love. So you can see all the women like mothers, and of course it's not good because it's difficult to sexualize mothers. It's not in our nature. So that's one of the most important features. Well, the same happens to girls in terms of the father as well. Their fathers, and it's called Electra complex. And then, well, some people they can't fall in love at all, and probably in their childhood they did not see that love ambience in their houses, in their homes, because some people confuse. There is not only family when there are children, And because there are children in the house, it doesn't mean it is a family. Family is based in love, precisely. And sometimes there is no love at home. Maybe you have aggressive parents or an aggressive father, for example, or an absent mother. I think an absent mother it's even worse than an absent father because the baby is more linked to the mother when he is born. So an absent mother can really, really, really disturb the the, the possibility of loving someone in the future. But you know, it's not a rule at all. It's just a vector because it doesn't mean that if you have love, you love someone, and if you don't have love, you not love someone. But normally, those people who received when they're child, when they are child and they're children, they receive really a big contention from their parents, a big amount of love. If their home is like an havre de paix, which means like a nest of peace, probably that person will be able to find love and express his love. Some people are very affective as well. Probably that person received a lot of affection when they were a child or a baby. And we have to differentiate as well love, affection, and sex or sexual attraction because it's not the same. Of course, they can come together, they can combine together, they can synergize together, but they're not the same. And sometimes, unfortunately for many people, they are not combined. You can be attracted to someone and love someone else. And probably you have that role model as well in your childhood. There are some basic moments of the baby, especially when someone is a baby, they are very important to psychology, and that can impact our emotional features in the future. Among them, the capacity of loving someone. So first off, Freud said that was the oral phase. He called it phase. Why oral? Because it's that moment that the newborn receives only the milk from the mother. That milk, that contact with the breast, that is the whole of his universe. And that's the point. That's one of the most important parts to define how and who you love in the future. That's very important. There is an expression that is used in psychology as well, that someone had good milk or bad milk. And that person can be like even a nasty person in the future. And of course, when we talk about good milk or bad milk, it's not only about the milk itself, it's about the context with interacting with the mother. In this first period of interaction with the mother, the baby has, in this oral phase that Freud organized as an oral phase, being an oral phase, the whole of the universe of the baby is the mother. So the baby doesn't differentiate his body from the mother. The baby doesn't think that's a person. The baby thinks that is a part of his body. The mother is for the baby the part of his body. And this moment is very important. This moment is the most important process of defining how the person can process his affection in the future, in the adulthood, definitely. After that, Freud defined another phases. For example, then there is it's called Anaphase, and when the baby takes conscience of when he's able to defecate, and well, that's a little present that he gives to the mother. That's, you know, that's a present that he gives to the mother, and of course it impacts a little bit as well the capacity of loving, of giving. It has to do with being more, having generosity or being more selfish. Freud makes an analogy of that phase of the baby in terms of how your financial life will be in the future, because it's like a blueprint that you receive when you're a child. But well, we're speaking about love, so of course I'll focus in terms of love. Well, the way you give, there are two types of people, a giver and a taker, no? And the way you have processed this part of your life will affect as well the amount of yourself that you're able to give or to take from your love. It comes from the childhood as well. So it's very important point to make the analysis. Because, you know, some people have toxic relationships. And what is a toxic relationship? Some people think a toxic relationship is when two people go to different directions. It's not about that. A toxic relationship is when there is no synergy. It means two people can go to the same direction, but only one of these two people say where to go and how to go. So that's a toxic relationship. And this is as well something that can come from the childhood moment. Well, then of course Freud, after that, we as a child we enter in the sexual phase, and it's when what happens in that phase? Well, it's more or less 5-6 years old. It's when the child takes contact with his sex. Not sexuality, not yet. Only sex. Sexuality is later in the teenager. Sex, it means the child understands he's a boy, he's a girl, and in that process as well, it can affect your love life in the future. This process of taking that contact, because in that moment still your mother is the person who gives you the shower, who like possesses your body, and little by little, when this child gets conscious about his body or her body, at the same time there is a process that takes around 4 or 5 years that the child, like, he doesn't want that. He feels like that's his body, and those are his parts, and nobody can possess that parts, or maybe he wants to take shower alone, for example, and it can affect as well the way you process that phase of your life. It can affect as well your life in adulthood, when you become an adult, but not precisely in terms of love, I would say, but more in terms of sexuality, how you process your sexual life, Well, that's it. The thing is that the childhood is one of the most important phases of our lives, and of course it affects absolutely our love life. By the way, I will take one of my first phrases of this description. When we grow up, we spend our whole life trying to compensate that thing that we didn't have, or that thing that we lost when we were a child.